But misfortune struck again. The very next afternoon, the mighty Ekene developed a sudden violent fever. He collapsed in the center of the market while boasting to his friends about his lovely bride-to-be. By nightfall, Ekene was gone, his strong body unable to fight an illness that came without warning. The people of Omar Zala were stunned. Two healthy young men dead, both having paid visit to Omar. Once upon a time, in the ancient village kingdom of Omar Zala, there lived a young woman named Omar. Omar Zala was a land blessed with rolling green hills and a sparkling river that wound its way around the clay walled compounds. Every morning, golden sunlight would spill over the hilltops, waking the roasters and urging the villagers to another day of life and laughter. Children with ebullient energy chased each other between mud huts, and women trekked to the river, balancing clay pots on their heads, their laughter echoing across the valley. Men took up hoes and cutlasses, disappearing into the misty dawn towards their yam fields and palm tree groves. The heart of the village was the market square, where an ancient odala tree stood guard over the red earth clearing. On lively market days, the square bursted with bright headscarves and the aroma of roasting maize, while elders sat under the tree, sharing kola nuts and proverbs as the ekwe gong sounded to announce the opening of trading. Omar Zala was as beautiful and vibrant as any kingdom in Igbo land, but beneath its pleasant reading lay a dark cloud of mystery that clung to one family's compound. Morning breaks over the lush fields and forests surrounding the village of Omar Zala, with blue skies and gentle sunlight greeting the land. Omar was 27 years old, with skin the color of roasted cashew and eyes bright like the morning star. She was known in Omar Zala not only for her beauty, Omalicha, the villagers nicknamed her, meaning beautiful, but also for her good heart. She helped her mother Nkem cook the family's meals on the clay hut and joined her father Obina and younger brother Ikena in the fields during planting season. She would sing softly as she weeded between the yam mounds, her voice as soothing as the breeze that rustled the ugu leaves. In the evenings, Omar sat with other girls under the moonlight to listen to the folk tales told by the elders, and her laughter rang out like bells when the trickster tortoise in the tale got his foolish punishment. By all accounts, Omar was a blessing to her family, the kind of daughter any parent would be proud to have, well brought up to respect her elders and the gods of the land. Her father, Obina, was a humble farmer who often said that agwa bu mma nwaanyi, good character is a woman's beauty, and by that standard, his daughter was the most beautiful in the land. Yet, in spite of all her virtues, Omar's life was shadowed by strange misfortune. In a village where most girls married in their late teens or early 20s, 27-year-old Omar remained unmarried, not for lack of suitors, but because a terrifying pattern had emerged. All the men who came to marry her had died mysteriously after visiting her father's compound. What began as whispered gossip in the market square soon grew into open fear. Mothers would warn their sons half-jokingly, "Nwokoma, if you value your life, stay away from that cursed girl." Fathers shook their heads sadly at Obina's plight, and the village Dibia, native priest, himself had been consulted more than once about the dark omen hanging over Omar's home. It started some years back when the first suitor, Ogbuefieze, arrived from a neighboring village. Ogbuefieze was a renowned hunter, proud and tall, wearing a leopard skin belt and carrying a hunting gun over his shoulder. He had seen Omar at the New Yam Festival dance and was immediately smitten by her grace. One fine Nkwo market day, he came with his kinsmen to Obina's compound, bringing palm wine and a fat goat to declare his intentions. Omar greeted him respectfully with a shy smile, and her family welcomed the visitors, breaking kola nuts in the customary way to bless the occasion. All seemed well. The Igwe, king of Omar Zala, even sent his goodwill, pleased that such a capable man sought a daughter of the land. However, fate had other plans. The night after Ogbuefi Eze's visit, the village was shaken by agonized shouts from the outskirts. The mighty hunter was found dead by the forest path, his body cold and eyes bulging. The whisper on everyone's lips was that perhaps a vengeful spirit had struck him down, for there was no wound on his body. Some recalled that he boasted about killing a mysterious large snake that day. Perhaps the forest spirits took offense. Regardless, Ogbuefi Eze never lived to marry Omar. Not long after, a second suitor courted her, Ekene, the greatest wrestler in all 9 villages of Omar Zala's clan. Ekene was a man whose strength was the pride of his people. He had beaten every challenger in the annual wrestling matches, throwing men like one throws kernels to fowls. He too had fallen for Omar's charm after a chance meeting by the river where she was washing clothes. He said her smile was as refreshing as the stream on a hot day. Gathering the approval of both families, Ekene visited Omar's home to formalize their engagement, bringing jars of foaming palm wine and baskets of yams. That evening, villagers murmured hopeful prayers that Omar's curse, if that's what it is, had passed. But misfortune struck again. The very next afternoon, the mighty Ekene developed a sudden violent fever. He collapsed in the center of the market while boasting to his friends about his lovely bride-to-be. By nightfall, Ekene was gone, his strong body unable to fight an illness that came without warning. The people of Omar Zala were stunned. 2 healthy young men dead, both having paid visit to Omar. As months passed, more men tried to win Omar's hand, for her beauty and character were renowned far and wide. But each time tragedy struck. A cheerful palm wine tapper named Udoka came singing to her compound one evening, promising to provide sweet wine for her forever. Mysteriously, he fell from a palm tree the morning after meeting Omar, and his neck snapped like a twig. A wealthy young farmer from a distant town brought rich fabrics and coral beads, determined to have Omar as wife. He was later trampled by a stray bull that escaped its pen on the journey home. Even a gentle young teacher who had returned to the village from the colonial city sought her out. Everyone thought perhaps a man of books would break the jinx. But a week after he exchanged love letters with Omar, a malaria with no cure took him. One by one, like a cruel joke, death plucked each suitor away. None of these men made it to the traditional wedding rites. Each died shortly after visiting or declaring love for Omar. By now, the whispering about Omar had grown into fearful talk. In the evenings, when fires burned low and moonlight silvered the village path, people spoke in hushed tones about the beautiful young woman with death in her shadow. Some villagers argued it was not her fault. Perhaps her personal god, is protecting her from an ill-fated marriage. A sympathetic old woman suggested, remembering tales of spirit spouses who jealously guard their human wives or husbands. Others were less kind, muttering that Omar must be an Ogbanje, the kind of evil spirit child that brings grief to its family repeatedly. Tofiakwa spat one man at the mere sight of her once, invoking God's name to ward off evil. Children, not understanding the depth of the situation, sometimes Cicely sang after her, "Oma nwaanyị ọjọọ, all your husbands die o," until their parents yanked them away and scolded them to silence. Each insult was like a thorn in Oma's heart. She would hurry home from the stream or market with her water pot or basket, eyes downcast, fighting back tears of shame and anger at how fate had painted her as a living corpse. Throughout all this, Oma's family stood by her. Obinna, her father, was heartbroken to see suitor after suitor perish, but he never blamed his daughter. He was a deeply traditional man who sought answers the Igbo way. After the second death, he took offerings of kola nut and a white cockerel to consult Allah, the earth goddess and keeper of morality. At her shrine in the sacred forest, the dibia, who went into trance at the shrine, proclaimed that there was a dark cloud and the anger of ancestors surrounding the family. But the messages were cryptic. Obinna performed every cleansing ritual recommended. He slaughtered a goat at the Afam market shrine to appease any offended spirit, and Nkem, Oma's mother, brewed herbs for spiritual baths to wash bad luck away from their daughter. They even traveled to a faraway seer who claimed that perhaps Oma had a spiritual husband under the river who was eliminating any earthly man that came near her, a claim that sent chills through Nkem's bones. This seer prescribed that Oma carry out a midnight offering at the river. She was to throw into the river a calabash containing a pig's feather, chalk and a small doll, symbolically divorcing any spirit spouse. Desperate for a solution, Oma did everything she was told, trembling alone by the river under a full moon, casting the calabash into the swift current with a whispered prayer, but nothing changed. The next man who approached her still met a sudden end. It was as if fate itself had sealed off the path of marriage to her. In those dark days, Oma's one constant source of comfort was Afam, her childhood friend. Afam was a familiar face at their compound. He had grown up just a few compounds away. They used to chase grasshoppers together in the fields as children and sit by the fireside while Oma's grandmother told moonlight stories. Now, as adults, Afam remained a loyal friend through all her trials. He was a slender, soft-spoken man with thoughtful eyes and a smile that was both kind and sad. He hated the way the villagers treated Oma and often stood up for her in public. On an occasion, when a group of youths snickered and refused to sit near Oma during a community meeting, Afam had marched over and deliberately sat by her side, glaring at anyone who dared speak. "Are you people blind with ignorance?" He has scolded them. "This is Oma, the same girl who grew up among us, not some witch from a folktale. Any of you that calls her again will answer to me." His fierce defense shamed many into silence that day. Oma had been grateful. She squeezed his hand afterward and said, "Afam, thank you. You have always been a true friend." He merely smiled and replied, "What are friends for, if not to stand by each other?" Jido Bigaka, take heart, Oma. Your good story never finished yet. In simple Nigerian English, he comforted her that her story was not over, encouraging her to hold on to hope. It was true. Afam was always there to wipe her tears on the worst days. When news of yet another suitor's death reached Oma, and she broke down sobbing in her mother's arms, it was Afam who arrived with fresh palm wine to calm Obinna's nerves and sweet okazi soup from his own mother for the family to eat. For who had appetite to cook then? He would help Oma's brother Ikenna with chores unasked, splitting firewood with a determined fury as if to vent his frustration at the world on the logs. Often he reassured Oma, "Someday Someone good will come, and even the gods will allow it. Don't lose hope, Nne. Afam's voice was gentle as a dove when he spoke to her, using Nne, mother, as an affectionate term common among the Igbo for a dear woman. Omar would manage a small smile and reply, I don't know, Afam. I am tired of seeing death. I fear any man who comes close. Afam would shake his head and respond with a proverb or encouragement. No condition is permanent. The rain that beats you will stop one day. His presence was like a shelter in the storm of gossip and fear that swirled around her life. To the villagers, Afam's unwavering closeness to Omar was a puzzle. Some joked quietly that maybe Afam had immunity to her curse because he grew up with her. Others suspected that he harbored deeper feelings for her, though if he did, he hid it well behind the guise of friendship. When Afam reached a marriageable age, his mother often pressed him, Afam, you are my only son. When will you bring a wife so I can carry my grandchildren? He would simply sigh or deflect the question. Truth be told, Afam had loved Omar for years, quietly, hopefully, and with a pain in his heart each time another man courted her. He had never spoken of it because he saw how much sorrow the talk of marriage brought her. Instead, he stayed by her side patiently, waiting for fate to show him a sign. One orange sky evening in the dry season, under the shade of the Odala tree by Omar's compound, fate seemed to stir. The Harmattan breeze had started to blow, and a few villagers were walking back from their farms early. Omar sat on a small wooden stool, absent-mindedly, weaving a palm frond basket. The compound was quiet. Her father and brother were still in the farm, and her mother had gone to visit an aunt in the next hamlet. Afam arrived and found Omar alone. Her face calm but her eyes distant, lost in thought. He greeted her. Nne, welcome. And she gestured her to sit on a woven mat beside her. For a while, they chatted lightly about the day. Afam described a funny scene he had witnessed at the market, making Omar chuckle for the first time in days. Her laugh was like the tinkling of a small bell, and Afam's heart swelled to see her smile. A silence fell between them as the sun dipped lower, painting the clouds in red and gold. Afam cleared his throat, nervous all of a sudden. He had rehearsed this in his mind many times, but now his tongue felt heavy. Omar, he began softly, picking up a dry twig and tracing lines in the sand to avoid her gaze. There is something I have been meaning to tell you. Omar noticed the unusual tremor in his voice. She sat down, her half-woven basket, giving him her full attention. What is it, Afam? You know you can tell me anything, she said, concern creasing her brow. He took a deep breath and met her eyes with determination, fueled by a mix of hope and fear. Omar, we have been friends since we were small. I know your heart more than anyone. I see your pain and I feel it too. You deserve happiness. And I want to be the one to give you that happiness. He paused as Omar's eyes widened slightly. Afam continued in a rush. I love you, Omar. Not as a sister or friend, but as a man loves a woman he wants to marry. I have loved you quietly for so long. I cannot hide it anymore. The air around them seemed to still. Omar's lips parted in surprise. Of all things she thought, Afam might say, perhaps that he was traveling or he had problems at home. A confession of love was the last she expected. Her heart pounded. She cared for Afam deeply, but as a brother, as her closest friend, she had never allowed herself to think of him in a romantic way. Perhaps she had built a wall in her mind because he was the only man near her that fate hadn't taken, and she dared not risk him. And now, here he was, looking at her with hopeful, pleading eyes that glistened in the evening light. Afam, Omar began, her voice quavering. She stood up, unable to sit still, and Afam rose too, anxiety written on his face. She paced a few steps, wrapping her arms around herself as if a cold wind blew, though the air was warm. Afam, you are like a brother to me, she finally said, turning to face him. Her words were gentle, but they struck Afam's heart like a dagger. He flinched, as though slapped. The phrase, like a brother, confirming his worst fear. No, please, just listen. Omar continued quickly, seeing his pained expression. You have been my rock through all this. I do love you, but not in the way you want. And even if I did, how could I dare? You have seen what happens to any man who tries to come close to me as a husband. I cannot bear the thought of losing you too. Biko, Afam, try to understand. I don't want you to die. Her voice cracked on the last word, and tears pooled in her eyes. Just imagining harm coming to Afam because of her made her chest tighten. Afam's hands balled into fists at his side. He stepped closer, emotion spilling over in his voice. So I should remain silent forever, eh? Watching you live alone and miserable like this because of some stupid cause that I don't even believe in, he cried out. The frustration of years seeped into his tone. Omar, I am not afraid. Why do you think I'm still here? Any other man would have run, but me, I will stay by you, cause or no cause. I can't watch you suffer and do nothing. Let me love you. Love is not by force. Yes, I know. I can't force your heart, he added bitterly, invoking a common saying that love cannot be forced. But I swear to you, whatever is killing those men, I will face it. I'll protect you. They say if a woman doesn't love you, she calls you brother. You just called me brother. Does it mean you don't love me at all? Afam's eyes were wet now, pleading. Shocked by the intensity of his words, Omar reached out to touch his arm. Afam, you don't understand. It's not about whether I love you that way or not. I'm afraid. I truly see you as family. My heart has been through too much fear and grief to think of romance with anyone, especially you, who is so dear to me. How could I ever forgive myself if something happened to you? Please, I beg you, let us remain as we are. I cherish you too much to risk your life. A tear rolled down her cheek. But Afam, fueled by long suppressed passion and perhaps a sense of injustice, could not let it go. He had imagined many responses from her, confusion, maybe a gentle letdown. But her reasoning both pained and infuriated him. In his mind flashed the faces of those suitors, and a dark thought flickered. None of them loved her as I do. He wiped his face and spoke more sternly. Omar, you are not cursed, don't you see? It has all been a terrible coincidence or something else, but not you. I won't die for simply loving you. I refuse. His voice rang against the clay compound walls. Omar took a step back, alarmed by the sudden hardness in his tone. How can you be sure, Afam? Are you a god? She asked, her temper rising in response. We have buried how many now? 5, 6? Each one gone after wanting to marry me. If I agree to be with you and you die, what will I do? I will never forgive myself. I would rather never marry in my life than cause your death. Afam's face contorted, frustration boiling over. He had hoped for a chance, a glimmer that she might reciprocate. But her fear for his life was like a wall he could not climb. And beneath that wall, he sensed that perhaps she truly did not see him as a husband. He was like a brother. That phrase thudded in his chest again. So that is it then, he muttered, stepping back. You will treat me like a brother and push me away while living alone in sorrow. Do you know how it kills me to see you like this? Do you even want to be happy? The words were harsh. Omar stiffened, hot flashing in her eyes now. Afam, that's unfair. Of course I want to be happy. Do you think I choose this life? She gestured around helplessly. You think I don't dream of having a normal life, a husband, children, peace? But those dreams have turned to ashes every time. It's like the God said no. And now I don't even dream again. I've accepted my fate. If I am to be alone to keep those I love safe, so be it. She sobbed softly at that, covering her face. Afam reached out as if to console her, but then pulled back, conflict raging in him. His voice dropped to almost a whisper, trembling with intensity. Omar, I love you more than my own life. Don't you know that? I would rather die than see you suffer. I don't want you to die at all, Omar cried, looking up at him, cheeks wet. Don't talk about dying, Afam, please. He fell silent, chest heaving. The crickets in the nearby grass had begun their evening symphony, oblivious to the emotional battle between the two friends. Finally, Afam spoke quietly and strangely. All right, I've heard you. There was a hollowness in his tone that made Omar uneasy. If being like a brother is what you want from me, then so be it. He managed a weak smile that didn't reach his eyes. It's late. Let me go. Your family will be back soon. Omar's heart twisted. She wanted to reach out and hug him, to reassure him their friendship would endure, but something in his distant expression kept her back. Afam, she whispered, I'm sorry. He merely nodded, then turned on his heel and left the compound without another word. Omar watched him leave. She felt an ache inside. She hadn't meant to hurt him so deeply. Perhaps with time, he will understand I did it out of love, she thought. But as she prepared the evening meal alone that night, Omar could not shake a heavy feeling of dread that she could not name. That night, the harmattan winds blew stronger, and a full moon rose, round and pale as a deadly coin. Omar's father, mother, and brother returned, and the family ate dinner quietly, pounded yam with bitterleaf soup, each lost in their own thoughts. Omar did not mention Afam's visit or confession. She was too emotionally exhausted and confused. She retired early to her small hut, a round mud dwelling within the family compound walls, laying on her woven mat. She could hear her mother's and father's low voices from the adjacent hut, likely discussing the farm work and perhaps their worries about her. Sleep came fitfully to Omar. At times she drifted off, only to start awake from nightmares where she had Afam calling to her from across a great river, or saw faceless suitors lying dead on the ground. In one dream, she saw a dark figure creeping around the compound with a knife. She woke up with a gasp, heart pounding, telling herself it was just the fruit of her troubled mind. Little did she know that on this very night, her greatest living nightmare was about to unfold. It must have been past midnight when a blood-curdling scream tore through the stillness of the compound. Omar jolted awake to the sound of her mother's voice screaming her name. Omar! Omar! The cry was cut short. For a second, Omar wondered if she was still dreaming, but then she had a thought and the clatter of something metallic, perhaps a lantern falling, coming from her parents' hut. Panic seized her. She scrambled up, her wrapper loosely tied around her nightdress, and pushed aside the raffia door flap of her hut. The compound yard was lit by moonlight and the faint glow of a falling oil lamp by the doorway of her parents' hut. Omar's bare feet slapped the cool ground as she ran. Mama, Papa, she called frantically. An unnatural silence answered. At the entrance, she nearly tripped over the clay lamp. She could see inside. Her father's form lay sprawled on the ground mat, unmoving, and beyond him, her mother's figure slumped against the wall. A pool of something dark, blood, was visible by the moonlight on the earthen floor. Terror, like none she had ever known, gripped Omar's throat. Her hands trembled violently as she stepped inside. The coppery smell of blood hit her. No, no, no! She wailed, rushing to her mother's side. Kem's eyes were half open, but glassy and unseeing. Her throat had a deep gash. Omar recoiled, clamping her hands over her mouth to hold back a scream. She spun to her father. Obinna had been stabbed in the chest, the fatal wound gleaming wetly. His face was frozen in shock, as if he couldn't believe what had happened. Omar's vision swam. This could not be real. Just hours ago, they were all laughing at Ikena's joke over dinner. Ikena, the thought, galvanized her, and she stumbled out of her parents' hut towards the smaller hut her brother slept in. Ikena, she cried, voice strangled with fear. Where are you? She flung open the door of the hut and nearly collapsed at the sight that greeted her. Ikena lay on his sleeping mat, limp and lifeless, a dark stain on his nightshirt where a blade had pierced his heart. The 19-year-old boy, who was her only sibling, her mischievous, lively brother, now looked as small and helpless as a child, his life snuffed out in silence. A keening sound rose from Omar's throat, an animalistic wail of grief and horror. She ran back to the yard, spinning in confusion under the cold moon. There was no sign of the attacker. Whoever had done this dreadful deed had melted away into the night, alone in the compound with slaughter of her family before her eyes. Omar felt her sanity slipping. She fell to her knees in the center of the yard and screamed, a long, agonized scream that seemed to stir even the distant hills. Neighbors heard the commotion, and soon beams of lantern light and confused voices filled Obinna's compound. Gasps and cries rang out as villagers discovered the gruesome scene. Women began to wail, high-pitched, mournful sounds of a death announcement, and men shouted for orders to come quickly. Some villagers restrained Omar gently, who by now was crawling to her mother's body in a state of shock, sobbing, "Mama, wake up, please wake up." Even as her shaking hands came away covered in blood. One of the elders, Ichie Okeke, carefully led her out of the blood-stained hut. Omar was trembling from head to toe, incoherent with shock. They wrapped a cloth around her and sat her on a bench outside as the tragedy was assessed. The Igwe's guards arrived not long after, alerted by runners. They moved through the compound with grim efficiency, confirming that Obinna, Nkema and Ikena were beyond any help. An emergency meeting of the Igwe's council was summoned before daybreak, as this was not just a family matter but a terrible omen upon the whole village. 3 deaths in one night, all in the same family already under the shadow of unusual happenings. Fear wrapped its icy fingers around the hearts of everyone in Omar Zala that night. Omar sat on the ground of the compound, wailing and muttering prayers to God and the ancestors. Some of the village women, though they feared her supposed cause, could not help but feel pity at the sight of her. A young woman who in one night lost mother, father, and brother. They tried to console her carefully, but Omar was beyond reach, her eyes wide with trauma. She clung to Ichie Okeke's arm at one point and demanded, "Who did this? Why? Why? Ichie, why?" The old man could only shake his head sorrowfully. "Nne, be calm, we don't know yet. It is too dark to see any tracks. The gods will reveal." "Oh Diego, this is terrible. Take heart, my child." But even he, respected elder that he was, looked uneasily at her, as though he too wondered in his heart if perhaps Omar herself was an agent of darkness. As the sky lightened into grey at dawn, the Igwe and his council gathered at the market square. The entire village was awake and alight with rumor. Superstition and fear hung thick in the air. At the gathering, people spoke out of turn, distraught and angry. "This is unheard of. Father, mother, son, all dead in one night," one man exclaimed. "It's that curse, I'm telling you," a woman's voice piped up. "Death follows that family everywhere now. We should have done something sooner." "Yes, perhaps Omar is an agent of evil. Who knows what she does at night?" Another villager snarled, fanning the flames. "Those suitors, death, and here our king. Is she offering them to some dark deity or what?" Not everyone agreed with such accusations, but the fearful were louder. The chief priest of the village shrine was present, his face painted in white chalk markings, and he gravely confirmed that unnatural forces were at work. When pressed if Omar was guilty of harming her own family, the priest closed his eyes in divination. Then, cryptically said, "I see death around her, but her hands." He turned his palms upward, empty. These ambiguous statements did little to clear Omar. Some interpreted it as she caused it without directly doing it, perhaps through a curse or simply her presence. Throughout the meeting, the Igwe, a portly middle-aged man with a dignified red cap and an eagle feather stuck in it, remained quiet, listening to his subject vent. Finally, Igwe Okabwe raised his elephant tail fly whisk, a sign for silence. The murmuring crowd fell quiet in respect. The Igwe's voice echoed deep and authoritative. "My people, a great evil has befallen us. In one night, we lost 3 good people. Our hearts are heavy." He paused, looking truly pained. He had known Obinna well. "We have all heard the whispers that have trailed Oma, Obinna's daughter, whether she is truly cursed by the gods or targeted by some evil spirit. The result is the same. Death follows her in the shadows." A few villagers nodded and sobbed in agreement. The Igwe continued, "We cannot, in good conscience, allow this pattern to continue. We cannot lose any more of our sons or daughters." His eyes swept over the crowd. "Sometimes, to cure an ailment, one must remove the source of the infection. It is the decision of the council that Omar be banished from Omar Zala, at least for a time. If it is a curse on her, perhaps distance will break it and save us all. If it is an evil spirit following her, let it follow her far from here." A collective gasp went up. Omar, who had been brought to the meeting under guard, more for her own protection from any angry villager than to restrain her, cried out and fell to her knees. "Igwe Biko, my king, please," she begged, tears streaming down her face. "I have done nothing. I swear on my father's grave, I hurt no one. Do not send me away. On top of this pain, where will I go? I have no one now." Her voice broke into a sob. It was a pitiable sight. Omar, clad in a simple mourning cloth, kneeling and pleading, face swollen with tears and grief. Some in the crowd felt a tug at their heart, but fear is a powerful force. The Igwe himself avoided her eyes as he replied, "Our decision is final. The safety of the village is paramount. The earth goddess Allah knows we do not do this out of malice, but necessity." He motioned to 2 guards. "At sunset today, she will be escorted beyond the far river to the borders of our land. She must not return unless a sign from the gods permits it." Omar slumped to the ground, wailing. Banished. In a matter of hours, she had lost her entire family and now was to lose her home and community. She felt as if she were falling into a bottomless pit of despair. Some of the women wept along with her, but none dared openly object to the Igwe's decree. The mood was fearful. Many believed that this was the only way to stop the curse from claiming more lives. All through that day, Oma sat in her compound in a daze as a few sympathetic neighbors helped prepare her for the journey. By custom, even the banished were allowed basic provisions. A widow named Auntie Uzo, who had been friends with Omar's mother, tied a bundle of dried fish and gari, cassava flakes, for her. Another neighbor quietly pressed a small parcel of cowries, shell money, into Omar's hand. It was all she could spare. They spoke little, because what comfort could they offer? Omar was like a living ghost, her usually warm brown eyes dull and ringed with darkness from crying. The bodies of her family had been taken away for burial by the community. They would be given a quick burial at the outskirts since people feared any lingering cause. Only a few brave relatives attended, and Omar wasn't even allowed. which hurt her deeply. She hadn't even been able to properly mourn or bury her parents and brother. Afam had been strangely absent through all of this. In the chaos of the night and morning, no one recalled seeing him. One of the neighbors mentioned that someone had gone to call him when the tragedy was discovered, but his hut was empty. That was unusual. Afam was always around. Some assumed he was too grief-stricken and had wandered off, or that he was avoiding the gathering. A whisper or two wondered, had he finally given up on his friend? But soon, other dramas took attention and Afam's absence wasn't dwelled on. As the red sun began to dip in the late afternoon, casting long shadows of the raffia fences, the Igwe's guard returned to escort Omar out. Word had spread, and a small silent crowd gathered along the edge of the market path to watch. It was a somber procession. Omar walked in the center, veiled in a black shawl, with only her sorrowful face showing, her small bundle of belongings on her head. Two armed guards walked, flanking her, and behind, a village Kong man softly beat a gong to signal an outcast was being led away, a traditional formality. The villagers did not jeer or throw things. Fear had tempered them to quietness. Some made the sign of the cross or a protective symbol as she passed, as if warding off any evil. Others simply looked away, unwilling to meet her eyes. Omar herself was beyond tears at this point. A part of her felt relief. At least, she would not have to see the accusatory stares every day. But mostly, she felt an overwhelming emptiness and dread.